Madam Secretary of State, very welcome once again to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you for this wonderful speech.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning everyone, and welcome to Town Hall meeting with Secretary Clinton. And you are all, actually we are all here because Secretary Clinton wants to meet not only the current leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also the future leaders of this country, which means all 400 of you. Of course, there are thousands of young and smart people in this country who have knowledge and who are able to shape the future of this country. And unfortunately, this theater is not large enough for them all. So we asked many of them to submit their questions on Facebook. Many of them are friends with US Embassy Sarajevo, hoping it will increase in number. So before we give floor to your questions, here is a question from our friend from Facebook. Tanja Mihailovic from Banja Luka, Lady Secretary, asks, what will be the main focus of your strategy in assisting Bosnia and Herzegovina in its future development?
Well, thank you for that question. And I think our main focus is to work with your leaders and work with civil society as you make the tough decisions about your own future. We know there has to be constitutional reform. We know there have to be economic reforms, and we cannot do those for you. That is the responsibility of your leaders and your citizens. But what we want to do is make it clear you're not alone, that the United States is very much willing and standing by, ready to help you as you make these difficult decisions. And I think that a lot of what I'm hearing from people who are from Bosnia and Herzegovina or are longtime observers is that a lot of progress was made the last 15 years, which was exhausting. It was difficult, and that's all understandable. And now there needs to be what we would call a second wind, where people do not get discouraged, where they do not give up, where they do not accept the status quo, where they do not retreat into their own communities and have nothing to do with the other. And that's what I'm here to really convey, a strong message following this election, which had a very good turnout, and people voted, I believe, to see progress made, and we want to help you do that.
We have another Facebook friend question. It's from Melissa Byridge. She's a native Bosnian who was able actually to study in the United States thanks to the State Department program. And her question is, in light of last week's elections in Bosnia and Herzegovina, will the US policy on Bosnia change?
Our policy will remain the same, that we are hoping to support the progress that must be made here in this country. What we hope is that with the election, there will be some new thinking, some new opportunities to break impasses, to try to resolve problems that have not yet been addressed. But I do want to reinforce the message that the United States stands by you. Even though I think your future lies in Europe and in NATO, and so you will naturally look toward Europe and look toward the EU. We don't want you ever to believe that the United States is not committed to helping you achieve that future. We don't have a vote in the European Union, but we hope that someday we can see Bosnia and Herzegovina become a member of the European Union. And as the Secretary of State, I argued very strongly at the last NATO meeting in Tallinn, Estonia, to grant what's called MAP, the Membership Action Plan, to Bosnia and Herzegovina, even though there are hurdles to be overcome, because I wanted to demonstrate unequivocally that the United States wants to see you in NATO. Now, there are some I know who wonder whether is that a good idea or not. But look to the future. You know, if you look at Europe today, a whole Europe, and think about the conflicts in Europe of the last century, and think of how France and Germany are now fully cooperative, working together, how the United Kingdom and Germany, how Germany and Israel have normal relations, you can see that even though it is difficult to overcome the past, it is essential in today's world. In this century, we cannot be dragged down by what was done to our grandparents or our great-grandparents, or even in this case, to our parents or ourselves, if we want to have a better future. So our position remains the same, but we feel some sense of urgency to support the changes that only you can make.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton. Those were the questions from our Facebook friends. Now, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to ask your questions. Yes, the gentleman over there.
Your Excellency, my name is Jan Kulenovic from Youth Information Agency, Bosnia and Herzegovina. First of all, thank you for your visit and US presence in Bosnia. I think it's very relevant and important for our country. My question is one hypothetical. After these elections, what if we have a politician with strong legitimacy, but with some separation and secession plans, wishes, blocking state institutions, and putting this country more close to Moldova, divided Cyprus or divided Georgia, plus having in mind that he or she is financially independent and sees international community and maybe your role more as an enemy than a partner. So what we can expect from United States with concrete measures or actions if such scenario happens. And I'm saying that especially because when I saw Mr. Biden last time when he was here, we had huge expectations, but when he left, unfortunately, I think nothing had happened. Thank you very much.
Well, answering your hypothetical, we support all of Bosnia-Herzegovina being part of a democratic, multi-ethnic state. And we do not support any secession or threats of secession from anyone because we think it is a losing proposition and it does not in any way reflect what our analysis has concluded, which is that Bosnia-Herzegovina together is much stronger, more able, and more likely to move toward an integrated European future than if it is coming apart. So we do not support and do not believe anyone should support any talk of separation. We do recognize that there are problems that have to be overcome between the entities in order for the state to function better. When I supported the map, the so-called plan for membership in NATO, I said we have to solve some of these lingering problems, like what property belongs to the state and what property belongs to an entity. And I believe strongly that leaders must take responsibility for resolving this. You have come too far. You have too much to lose if you cannot overcome these differences. So I just met with the tri-presidency, and we discussed very frankly these kinds of remaining challenges. Underlying these problems, you know better than I, there is lingering mistrust and suspicion of one another. And I can only hope that more is done by civil society and by the government to break down that mistrust and overcome that suspicion. I worry that it's just human nature, having gone through such a traumatic experience, to draw back and to become separate from the other communities. I come from a country that is the most pluralistic in the world. That doesn't mean we all love each other. That doesn't mean that we all spend our time overcoming lingering cultural or historical or religious or ethnic problems. But it means that every single day, the vast majority of us go about our business without trying to make that situation difficult. So I represented New York in the United States Senate. New York City is the most diverse city in the world. I have lost track of how many languages are spoken, how many religions are practiced. But we have a government that does not permit anyone from impinging on the rights or from acting as though they can be a government unto themselves. And I think Bosnia-Herzegovina is the most pluralistic place in Europe. And so it's not only for your own future, but it's to set that example, to be in Europe a real signal that, yes, people from different backgrounds can live together as you once did. So, yes, we are very much opposed to any efforts at secession, any efforts at separation. And more than that, we think it is not in the self-interest of those who advocate such action.
Thank you very much. The next question, the lady over there, please.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor, Ms.